Hi traders, this is Senior Account Manager Adam Howes hosting a new webinar daily on the Daily European Open. The purpose of this webinar is just to have a look at the fundamental and technical events on a daily basis leading up to one of the most important trading sessions in the market, and that's around the timing of the European Open, approximately 4 o'clock p.m. Obviously, we have London coming online at 5 o'clock and then the US shortly after. So you'll notice on a handful of pairs that the volatility does increase on these instruments, particularly on the euro and the pound. So we thought the benefit of holding this daily webinar would be to, inform you at the time, what's actually happening on the market with respect to, as I said, news events, obviously, technical information that's going to be relevant, and then sort of trying to tie that all together in terms of actually having a look at some live trading setups. So we'll get underway. Just a short general advice warning before we begin. Forex trading involves trading at risk capital. The following education session is not to be treated as personal advice. Forex City provides general advice only that does not take into account your personal needs or circumstances. Okay, so let's firstly just have a look at the economic announcements for tonight. So we're on Tuesday, August 1st. We're in Greenwich Mean Time at the moment, so please apply this to your respective time zone. Obviously, if you're in WA, backtrack 2 hours. But we've got several key announcements today. The one that happened today at 2:30 was the AUD Reserve Bank of Australia rate decision. As expected, the RBA left rates on hold at 1.5%. There was really no pressure on them to actually raise rates. The RBA boss came out last week saying that there was a more gradual implementation of rate increases, and there wasn't any great need to increase rates currently. So, the market was a little bit lackluster in its approach to that. In fact, we'll have a look at the Aussie chart in just a moment, and we'll see that, largely it was a bit of a, broad sell-off of the Aussie, which was obviously met with a huge amount of buying pressure. And ironically, the price kind of stayed where it was, to return to actually a level where it was previously in the announcement. Tonight we've got European German unemployment change and also Eurozone gross domestic product year on year for the second quarter annualized. So we had a previous reading. Probably the market's going to be paying attention more to the 7 o'clock announcement here on the European market. We had a previous announcement of 1.9%. Forecasted as 2.1. So anything sort of meeting that figure or exceeding expectations would obviously be bullish for the euro. The euro has been very strong already. Broadly speaking, against a weaker US dollar. Obviously on political risks surrounding Trump, but also on, the US obviously being a bit lackluster in their approach towards raising rates. The Fed indicated that there would be more gradual implementation of rate increases over the course of this year, with only a 40% likelihood in September. So again, the market has taken that as a little bit more dovish, and hence that sort of spiked up the euro over time. But the euro is, in its own right, on Draghi's comments earlier, in relation to fiscal policy and monetary policy, is also sort of hyped up the euro as well. So the euro is strong at the moment. It's probably one of the key trades for you to focus on for this evening. Also going to have a look at personal consumption expenditure. It's a major measure of economic health in US at 10:30 as well. Previous announcement of 1.4%. Expected or forecasted 1.4% also. Anything more than that should create a bit of a spike upwards. But again, if we don't get a massive sort of variance, or even we get 1.5 or 1.6%, it may not be enough to actually, sort of stem an already weaker US dollar generally. So, we want to keep our eyes on that. Obviously, 2330 rather, we've got the Canadian market Canada manufacturing PMI. That's broadly speaking, PMI is just a measure of a confidence amongst plant managers. Okay, so we look at industrial output. It's kind of a confidence measure of that. So anything sort of better than previous would actually be taken as bullish for the Canadian dollar also. We saw some major moves on the market last week with the Canadian. We had GDP on Friday for the US and Canada as well. Broadly, they're translated into USD weakness and Canadian strength, okay, especially in the USD CAD pair. Let's have a look at the charts for tonight anyway. So the usual format of what we'll follow here, and bear in mind there's a lot of information probably in front of you at the moment, but there is a purpose behind it, so bear with me. Just going to expand these charts a little bit more so you can see what I'm talking about. And they're usually the format that we'll follow. on these sorts of charts is to have a look at daily timeframes. And by having a look at the daily timeframes, we can have a look broadly at 8 pairs, which we actually have a look at on the daily technical report. Have a look at the AUD US dollar, the pound against the, should be the pound against the US dollar there, sorry. So let me just alter that. Just click on that. There we go. Got the euro against the dollar. We got the USD against the Japanese yen up here. Got gold, oil, SPI 200, and the pound against the Japanese yen. So we've seen, obviously of late, a lot of strength in gold over the past few days, and correspondingly met by a lot of weakness on the USD Japanese yen. Okay, so the yen is a safe haven asset, much like gold is. Okay, when we see a rise in gold, we see a decrease in strength on the USD Japanese yen. Obviously, over the course of the last few trading sessions, we've seen the euro spike up significantly, as well as the pound. So you can see all the majors sort of gathering strength against a weaker US dollar. Now, generally speaking, you know, in these sorts of trading setups here, because we're having a look at, you know, daily charts, we can, you know, really, well, fundamentally, I suppose it would make sense to, you know, consider further backing of obviously the majors, the Aussie dollar, the pound, the euro against an already weaker US dollar. Is it the right time essentially to come in, you know, and trade that right away? You know, maybe the entry point isn't there. As we said, we had the Aussie dollar, for instance, we had a big spike on that announcement, as you can see here. This is when we had the RBA announcement today. Big spike upwards, met by, you know, sort of a bit of a doji situation. Coming back up, selling pressure, and broadly speaking, now might be the optimal time to actually come in and buy in the market, seeing as we've got this sold level happening on the Aussie right now on an hour chart. So now might be the time or the better entry point to come into the trade. As I teach in, you know, most of my webinars previously, you know, the fundamentals are very important. You should start with a fundamental outlook, which we've just done. Broadly speaking, we pit the majors against the US dollar and see which is stronger. You know, if the majors are stronger against a weaker US dollar, then we can consider backing gold as well in that scenario. Okay, but I always teach technically to always have a look for price occurring above a trend line above the pivot, which obviously the Aussie is doing at the moment. And then we can have a look at obviously a shorter time frame like 4 hours or 1 hour. If we have a look at 1 hour here, obviously see that we had that massive spike up on the RBA announcement here and then down, another bearish candle, and then we optimize the time coming in at this low point, maybe to consider another buy of the stronger Aussie against the weaker US as well. Same with the euro as well. Clearly significant uptrend on the euro just here. This uptrend is persisting. We go to a shorter term time frame for an entry point, like 1 hour. Again, it's becoming favorable to come into the market yet again for a buy on the euro, considering that we're getting some, you know, some oversold levels occurring in the market here. Same with the pound as well. We got a strong uptrend. Seeing as well, it's no accident that the price kind of goes up and retraces and tests the trend line. And yet again, we're getting some bearish pressure coming back into the market. If we go back to a 1 hour chart for an entry point on the British pound, we'll find that yet again, we've got this favorable oversold scenario happening in the market right now. Correspondingly, that's going to translate into USD weakness. Okay, we've got a broad downtrend with the US dollar. Obviously, if we've got the majors rising against the US dollar, then the US dollar is going to rally downwards against the Japanese yen. We're seeing a broad downtrend persisting on the USD JPY at the moment. Again, if we go to our hour, just here, then we'll see that we're optimizing sort of a time for, you know, a sell to come into the market. So that's just generally looking, you know, at good entry points on trades. I wouldn't suggest anyone second guess fundamentals. It really does pay attention to, sort of see what is in the news. Really form an opinion at the end of the day about what the market is doing around such news events. Okay, really what that's about is assessing USD strength or weakness against the majors. We know the US to be quite weak because of the Fed's stance towards implementation of raising rates. They're a little bit dovish on that front. We've also got a lot of political risk with Trump. Trump obviously being a bit of a wild card, really not getting a lot of effectual policy through in terms of tax reform or economic stimulus. Obviously, he is a loose cannon when it comes to Twitter as well. We also have the North Korea situation, which is adding, fuel to the fire. So broadly speaking, fundamentally, the outlook for the US this week, okay? But that entry point has to exist. You need to optimize the entry point on your trades as well. So always wait for these oversold conditions to exist shorter term before you come into the market, which is what the Aussie is right now, probably considering just here as well. So looking ahead to tonight, probably see a little bit of a rally on gold if this uptrend persists. Looking for additional targets of probably 1275 to 1280 in extension as well. Got oil having a significant rally. SPI probably tailing off a little bit at the moment in relation to pretty unimpressed with the moves on Wall Street last week with records on the Dow, where we saw a really sort of broad sell-off here, probably some profit taking in the market. But as we said, the optimal time to come into the market is to be greedy when people are fearful, and vice versa. When people are fearful, be greedy, and when people are greedy, be fearful. So you've got a prime situation here where you see the price sort of tailing off to a low, and probably an optimal time there for a buy. So, looking retrospectively in hindsight, which is always great, but, those sorts of conditions do exist to favour buyers in the market. Obviously, we've got a stronger pound against the yen at the moment. There are some news events coming up for the pound later this week, which we'll go into a little bit more detail. But as we said, broadly speaking, the US is probably favored to be a little bit weaker over the course of tonight, and the AUD, USD, and the other majors being quite strong against the US dollar over time. But please keep your eyes posted on the future economic events for this week. As we said, on your daily FX or whatever economic calendar you're using, go to a weekly view, and then you've got basically a synopsis of everything that's happening. We're coming up to a lot of UK and US data this week. We're coming up to manufacturing data overnight for the US, and New Zealand unemployment rate tomorrow morning at 8:45, which should create a big move in the market. Looking at the Bank of England rate decision, expected to leave rates on hold at 0.25%. And then we've got other major, one of the most major events traded in the Forex market, which is indeed the non-farm payroll. We'll talk about that tomorrow in the lead up to Friday, but I would suggest getting in contact with your account manager about that announcement and really sort of, getting a take on what the announcement means and what the likelihood of the move is going to be in the market. But for the time being, that hopefully that forecast has given you a little bit of help tonight, just to be able to sort of, predict the, direction of USD strength or weakness in the market. If you have any questions about that, obviously get in contact with myself or your respective account manager. But we look forward to seeing you tomorrow, promptly at 4 o'clock, for the second edition of the Daily European Open. Thank you very much for your attendance. Appreciate it.